Hello there, Russell Beste here, candidate, U.S. Senate, Vermont. I'm independent and self-funded. About me real quickly, I'm a family man. I live in Burlington. I work in St. Albans. I work full-time in the biotechnology field and I'm a recognized global leader in this particular space. Previous life, I've designed and built, engineered my own home. I created my own consultancy for a number of years and worked really hard on that. I have 3 kids that I'm raising, 1 in college, so quite busy with that. I'm also very active in various other areas in Vermont, trade groups in particular, the Vermont Bioscience Alliance, in which we're basically developing ties with companies outside the state and elsewhere to bring more well-paying, high-paying biotechnology jobs to Vermont. Why am I running? First and foremost, to bring jobs to Vermont. Our economy has been fading for a long time. Our schools are down 25%. A lot of our pensions with our state employees and our school teachers are significantly and vastly underfunded to the tune of more than $1 billion, quite substantial. And we need to do something about that. Vermont is great. I want future generations of Vermonters to live here. And the only way to do that is to create jobs. We need private sector jobs badly. And I'm here to do that. So that's the main reason I'm running. I also think we can work harder to improve our rural Vermont, bring jobs to other cities outside of the main, Burlington, Montpelier thoroughfares, down to Rutland and Brattleboro and St. Albans and elsewhere. It's very important for us to make an economy for everybody that works. And so I'm working really hard to do that as well. Additionally, I'm independent. I don't belong to any party. I focus on issues, not sides. In some senses, I might be considered a liberal in some ways. In other ways, some of my issues are more conservative feeling in nature. And so I really go kind of just issue by issue. And I hope people would do that. I think it would help us a lot. And it would help unify Americans to focus more on issues and not just label people by calling them, oh, you're a conservative, or oh, you're a liberal, this or that. It's just not productive and healthy for our country. Let's bring ourselves together and work together. We all have different ideas and we're not going to agree on everything. I assure you, you're not going to agree with everything I say. I'm also self-funded. I don't believe in money in politics. We don't need money in politics. The internet is free. Websites, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, they're all free. And so I'm self-funded. I haven't taken a dime from anybody. We really don't need that. When people take money, they're really getting money to do favors for other people, which diminishes my vote and your vote. It's not fair. It's not right. Focus on the money part and don't borrow money from other people. Run self-funded. That's what I do. I'm also very much in tune with streamlining our government. We have far too many regulations and far too high taxes in Vermont. It's killing us as a state. I'm here to work on that, to reduce those problems, streamline our government, and reduce our taxes. That has to happen. We can't run successfully as a state without taking care of these sorts of issues. I'm also here to protect the environment. I believe very strongly that we need to address global warming, that we need to clean up our Lake Champlain, get the microbe count lower. We need to make our place better again and more beautiful. We need a clean environment for our next generation and generations to come. It just makes sense. I also am very much opposed to the divisiveness that's happening today in this world. We don't need divisiveness. We need to work together. Everyone has different ideas, and we need to fight to bring ourselves together. I will do just that. National debt, $67,000 per person in the United States. It's insane. It's way tit comprises almost our entire GDP. It would take an entire year just to pay off the debt. That's not possible or sustainable, and it's inefficient government to do that. We can do better than that. We need to reduce our national debt, and I will work hard as your U.S. Senator to make sure that happens. Term limits. We don't need terms of half a century, okay? It's just too long. I think maybe 2, maybe 3 terms would be 18 years. 2 terms would be 12 years. Somewhere around there would be the right number, I think. Why? Any business would never keep a CEO in charge for 2 or 3 decades. It just doesn't make sense. Why? Because there's lots of good ideas out there and new energies that are out there. We can do better by bringing people in and rotating people in and out a little bit more frequently. And I'm not saying every year or 2, but 2 or 3 terms would be reasonable. So I am for term limits. Healthcare. I am here to make healthcare more affordable. There are so many new technologies happening, and the healthcare space in general is quite complicated, far too complicated. And there's not a one-size-fits-all or a one-thing item solution. It's complicated. There's many things we can do. We can Amazonize our distribution system to make it far more efficient and distinct, and cut out the middleman. We don't need so many middlemen in our medicine. We can further empower our nurses and physician assistants to do more tasks, train more people. That would create more jobs too. So that would be another way. Liability. We could reduce liability so that we don't have the ambulance chasers, and we don't have companies that, come in as a law firm and threaten billion-dollar lawsuits just to make them settle for $100 million. That just makes things inefficient. We need to cut through the red tape too. There's far too much red tape. If you've ever been in a doctor's office these days, half the visit is them typing in a computer what needs to be done. And they could do that a lot quicker if they didn't have quite so many regulations in regards to that. So that can be made more efficient as well. And of course, the US FDA, I've worked with them for a long time in my career, and they're incredible. And they do a great service to our country. But certainly, like any business, they could do things to help control costs. And also even our patent laws. A lot of the patent laws are used as a business piece in which they thwart lower cost medicines from making it to market. So that doesn't make sense either. So we need to work on that too and make things more efficient in our PTO. Positive leadership. We need to have and hold our leaders accountable. Leaders are not our kings. They are our elected officials. They work for us. And even if they don't agree with us, they still represent us and need to listen to us, all sectors of society, whether they like what they're saying or not, and work for us to help us. So we need presidents and senators who unify, who bring people together. And I'm that kind of guy. I will listen to everybody, and I do. Even opinions I don't really respect necessarily, I will listen, hear them out, because usually there's a good reason why someone believes something. People are pretty darn smart. They figure things out. That's very important to me. The other thing is our free press. We have the three pillars of our government, of course: legislative, judicial, and executive branch. But the fourth pillar is the most important, and that's our free press. We need our free press, and it is their right to talk and say what they feel is appropriate. So when they're called or labeled fake news, that makes me very mad. Why? Because the press is ours. It's the one thing that we have that protects all of us from people trying to become kings or dictators or otherwise overthrowing our government. We cannot let that happen. Do not let anyone tell us that our free press is not saying the right thing and not free news. Because guess what? Free press is actually free speech. That's what it's about. It's not fake news. It's free speech. So we all need to support that, whether we like it or not. We need to be smart. We need to work in a nationalistic way and act globally too. I call this 21st century nationalism. Now, the 1970s nationalism was, all your country, forget everybody else. Well, times have changed now. This is the 21st century. There are now hypersonic nuclear weapons and bombs being developed that can go 4,000 miles an hour. And so if there is one completed in development, which won't be long, it won't take more than an hour to get to our states from some other bad authority, some other bad actor out there. So we need to be prepared for that. Same with biologics. There's a lot of things out there that are very dangerous. So while we need to focus on the American citizen first, and I will do that always, and especially the Vermont citizen, we need to also recognize that there's a global world out there and we need to work with them. So international work, nationalism, but with a global perspective within that is how I would act. Nepotism. We don't need nepotism in our government. We don't. There are 360 million people out there in the United States, and they're smart. There's a ton of smart and good people out there. We don't need to have conflicts of interest in our government. People should not be electing and bringing family members into our government. They weren't elected to begin with, and they shouldn't be there. I don't believe in nepotism in our government. There's too many smart people out there, too many highly qualified people out there who are independent, yet very bright and helpful, and those are the people I want in our government, and I will work hard to have nepotism policies within our government. Last, elections. We need to keep non-citizens out of our election process. We need to enforce our immigration laws, very important there. We have laws, let's enforce them. And also, we need to keep other countries out of our elections. We still haven't found out exactly what Russia did, but I suspect there was some involvement there, and probably in a lot of other areas too. So we need to work on that and prevent that from happening again. Very, very important. Last, the Iran deal. You know what? We pulled out the Iran nuclear agreement, and I disagree with that. I didn't like it because we need to control nuclear weapons. But the other thing was a business aspect to that. Why? Because now that we don't have good relations with Iran, we don't have that negotiating power for their oil. Okay? And so when this latest thing with Khashoggi, this horrendous thing where our contract reporter for the Washington Post went over to Saudi Arabia or to Turkey in the consulate and was murdered, had his head beheaded, he was beheaded, and his fingers chopped off, and we can do almost nothing about it. Why? Because we need Saudi Arabian oil. And if we hadn't cut ourselves out of the Iran deal, out of the Iran nuclear agreement, we would have had better relations with them. We could have used that as a bargaining chip from a business perspective against Saudi Arabia. But we don't have that chip, so really we don't have the ability to negotiate very strongly with Saudi Arabia. That was a huge mistake. Talk about art of the deal. That was the art of the bad deal. We shouldn't have done that. It wasn't necessary. We should have worked with Iran and restructured the agreement if we really didn't think it was a good deal from a nuclear perspective. Anyway, long-winded. I'm Russell Beste, candidate, U.S. Senator, Vermont. No BS, straight shooter kind of guy. You'll like most of what I say, but not everything. Please vote for me. Election's coming up. And again, Russell Beste, independent, self-funded candidate, U.S. Senate, Vermont. Thank you very much for your time.